skip ahead so that we don't have to wait for the introductions. Okay, we're into the action. Are you watching? So, Kaito, we still got you on the call, mate?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Perfect. Alright. So, we're watching two heavyweights from the 80s. It's quite interesting actually looking at this because I really don't actually know the details of Larry Holmes or Michael Spinks in terms of the sizes and stuff. But does Michael Spinks look like quite small for a heavyweight, or is that just me?
Yeah, Michael Spinks, just having a look, came in at £200 on the dot.
Okay.
Which literally just qualifies him. Larry Holmes, £222, so I'll lead their heavyweight by today's standards, but strong, about 6'3", probably 81-inch reach. You can still kind of fight with authority, because obviously they used to say his jab was like a right hand in itself, just the speed and the way he kind of snapped it out.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Spinks coming to this fight undefeated too. It was all to kind of lose for Larry Holmes here. He had they kind of mentioned it in the start of the broadcast, but he has a record of 48-0. So winning this fight would draw him with Marciano's kind of fabled 49-0 record, which obviously Mayweather was looking to do more recently. So it was all on the line for him here. Michael Spinks was the kind of number one light heavyweight in the world. He kind of beaten a who's who. If you look through his resume, he'd beaten the likes of Dwight Muhammad Kali, which people kind of know more for his kind of stuff at cruiserweight with Holyfield. But he'd also beaten Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. So if you think nowadays, if someone at light heavyweight had beaten like a prime Kovalev and a prime Adonis Stevenson, they'd be the man at light heavyweight. So he'd really proved himself as well, the kind of pound for pound best, and then to jump up 25 pounds and take on the heavyweight champion of the world was a feat no one had done before. I think the big example they always use was Billy Conn versus Joe Louis. Billy Conn was much smaller and he was ahead on points, but ultimately Joe Louis with his power caught him in the 13th round. So it was a fabled feat, and he was a 4-1 underdog going into this as well.
Right. Well, that was excellent knowledge. I'm glad you had that, because I really haven't done my research, which I probably should do in future. So we've just come to the end of that first round. Hopefully you was paying some attention as you was explaining that the history expertly as well. How do you think that round went? How did you score it?
It's a close one. Mm-hmm. I think I just had it just to Holmes a bit. I think it's because of this rate he's still popping at the jab more. I think Spinks has always been a tentative starter as well. If you look back when he won the title against Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, Eddie Mustafa is a kind of aggressive fighter, but Spinks tends to come on late. He was a proper 15-round fighter who could kind of analyze you, take bits and pieces, and then kind of control it over the distance. So not the slowest starter, not the fastest starter, I think, but Holmes just about took that opener.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, I was kind of watching it as you was explaining it, and I paused it there just while we kind of recap on that fight. Maybe that's the way to go. Gives us a little bit of time to get our scores in. Obviously, it'll take a little bit longer to get through the fight, but we'll be able to kind of break down our thought process, I guess. For me, from what I saw, I was kind of more inclined to go with Spinks's output, and there was one phase there I was trying to catch the time of it, but I didn't. But he landed, I'm not sure if it was like a quick 1-2 or something, and it was kind of a bit of an eye-catching shot.
Yeah.
Obviously, that more happened as well as that in the round, but Yeah, I think in terms of how I'd score it on the Fight Score app is 10-9 for Spinks, and it was a very close round, so I'd just edge it as a percentage 45 to 55 in favour of Spinks. And then the reason for me was kind of I'd go with on the front foot because he was kind of pressing forward. Holmes was popping out the jab constantly, but I think that's how I would give that one. Very close. It could go either way. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely one of the more kind of competitive, kind of feel out rounds in the fight. Yeah.
All right, so we'll go on to round 2. Obviously, we'll probably be able to concentrate on that a little bit more. So I guess Holmes is on the front foot at this point. He's working the jab, keeping Spinks under control. So if I'm thinking in terms of our reasons at the moment, it's Larry Holmes is controlling the action.
Yeah, definitely. Spinks has this kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, maybe a bit of a kind of herky, kind of jerky style.
Yeah.
Not like Tyson Fury, but that style it kind of consists of feints. It's kind of strange. He seems to be like leaning on the front foot, but he dips. He's hard to hit. You can't catch him clean.
It's a very annoying style.
Yeah,
I can imagine it's very frustrating for a boxer to have to fight against that.
Yeah,
it's frustrating to watch as well.
Yeah, and obviously he's quite a tactical boxer and technical boxer. So you see him moving around. You see him kind of parrying, taking away. I mean, I think Holmes always kind of gets at least one of the jabs through, but he does seem to be taking a few of the jabs away. So it does work, and it looks like it shouldn't, but it does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, first half of the round's over. I don't think much has changed. Spinks has not been able to get his shots off, really.
No.
You saw Holmes there basically just stiffs arm him.
Yeah.
Because of the reach, he could just literally just back off and then stop any of the attacks coming through. And as you've kind of pointed out, it's only been him that's really landing his jabs. He's landing his own shots consistently.
Yeah.
He's in control of the ring and defense. It's a clear control in the action so far.
Yeah.
There's another jab there. Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. Spinks is trying to do stuff. It's just not really working, is it? He's not landing much. Holmes is just controlling him with that jab. It's his weapon at the moment.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting going into this. If you judge his opposition based on basically the ring ranked top 10 heavyweights since he was basically a championship level fighter, I think coming into this he basically had like a 70-0 record versus top 10 fighters.
Right.
Which is, yeah, don't see 17-0 versus top 10 fighters a lot more. There's a bit more from Spinks there, kind of caught him with the left hook. Just such a long reigning champion as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's not overly phased in that shot, and obviously the crowd went up for it, and that can sway people, can't it?
Yeah, it's the last minute attack as well. Like these shots have only landed in the last 30 seconds, but I think for 2 minutes and 30 seconds of the round, from what I think you and I have seen, he's been outboxed because he's landed more consistently. He's landed the stronger jabs. And he's been better kind of defensively as well. He's really kind of picked off everything Spinks was trying to throw in the first 2 minutes. So for me, I think even though Spinks probably won the last 30 seconds of the round, I'd still call that a control in the action round because Holmes was in control for about 90% of it.
Yeah, that's exactly how I'd go as well. What would you say in terms of percentage? It was still fairly close, but I think it was a little bit more than that I scored the last one. So I'd go like 60-40 in this circumstance.
Yeah, 64. I'd probably agree with that. But it's interesting that after the first round, which was, I think we kind of agreed was quite close, not much thrown, that Holmes basically comes out and stamps his authority on the second round. Mm-hmm. He just gets the jab going where he couldn't really not do it. He's clean before, but now he's kind of got his authority on the fight. So we'll see what happens in the third round, whether it can change that or whether Spinks can kind of enact his own fight plan.
Yeah. So again, Holmes is out on the front foot here, isn't he? Spinks is kind of backing off. He's backing off.
Yeah.
I mean, Holmes is kind of missing a bit, but he's at least he's throwing. He's trying to make things happen, and I guess he's just trying to work out Spinks' awkward, herky-jerky style, really, isn't he?
Yeah. You kind of saw Holmes there, kind of. Oh, that was a good shot.
Mm-hmm.
I think as well that Holmes is so kind of front forward there that Spinks was able just to kind of jump in with that straight shot. It was kind of reminiscent of what you saw last night with Usyk and Joshua. Yeah. Joshua's head is on the centre line, and you saw Usyk just follow right through with the left hand lead. It just hit him straight through the gloves as well.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when you're the smaller guy by about 20 pounds as well, that your speed can carry up, and you're able to kind of jump in and out like that with those lead shots.
Yeah. He just landed a few there, Spinks, but then he ended up taking one back as a result. Yeah. It's a nice little exchange, and this is a really close round now. We're halfway through. I think Holmes started off really well, but that last 30 seconds or so, Spinks is kind of he's caught him a bit.
Yeah.
And now we're back to kind of Holmes jabbing away, and then it's getting a little bit untidy, and I can imagine that might continue a bit, as they start tiring. The frustration of working out Spinks' tactics.
Yeah. You see as well that Holmes seems to want to use his reach to kind of manipulate the distance, just kind of almost like George Foreman versus Joe Frazier, just kind of push him away and get his shots off. But Michael Spinks just immediately, as soon as he sees those arms come out, he can see the opportunity, he just jumps forward and lands a shot.
Yeah.
So Spinks basically just kind of seeing some defensive kind of openings that he can kind of score against. Holmes doesn't seem to be too concerned about the power, because Spinks has landed some decent punches, but he immediately just kind of comes back with his own jab.
Yeah, I think in the context of the round as well now, I think it's swayed. I think Holmes started off the better. I think now Spinks seems he's up for his reign to go. He's landing a few there, and it's been broken up by the ref, but he's straight back in. He's raring to go, and Holmes is
kind of bullying him.
Yeah. Holmes is looking. I'm not sure if he's tired or if he's just slowing down a little bit, but that seemed to me. Look at both men at the end of the round, and I'd say Spinks has got that one.
Yeah, I'd agree. He just kind of picked off at the end of the round. He slips inside just for a minute, lands the kind of short range uppercut, the short range left hook, and I think that's probably for me. I'd probably say it's the cleaner shots. Ultimately, that he gets. You see the jab here and there. You see he doubles up on the kind of left uppercut. Holmes is kind of pushing him away, so it's more glancing really, but still taking a glove to the face. But for me, it's 55-45. Michael Spinks, cleaner shots, 10-9.
Yeah. Cool. I think what we'll do is after the next round, we'll pause and we can bring up our scorecard comparison side by side, and we can kind of reflect on what we're seeing there. And I think also in our next stream before we watch the fight, and this is really good action that I'm speaking over, but I think we can have a run through of the reasons that are selectable and have an explanation of what I determine that they mean in my mind. I mean, people can interpret them however they like, really, but I think that'd be a good idea for next time.
Yeah, definitely. A really excellent start for Spinks. I think for the most part, Holmes seems to be taking away the right hand, but it's Spinks' left that's just too unpredictable. He comes with a straight jab as well, but he kind of is able to kind of close the range, get the left hook in. You saw him complain about, I think, an elbow when they were up close, which Holmes has obviously already kind of gone with the dirty tactics. Like I say, he kind of wrestled him a bit, kind of chucked him towards the ropes. He's kind of stiff-armed him, done kind of stuck the forearm against the neck there, pushing him back. He's trying to just kind of impose his weight advantages and just kind of bully him back. But still, you see Spinks, he's still landing the better shots.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. You know, Holmes is in a way he's trying to be controlling, but I just don't think it's happening for him at the moment. Is it? Spinks is just too busy, and he's excuse me, he's managing to get around the jab.
Just to kind of reiterate something we talked about earlier, we're talking about Holmes' kind of like leaky defense, and you saw him do it there, right? He either pops up the glove to try and like obfuscate Spinks' vision, like just put it in front of his eyes, or he'll extend it over his shoulder, which will try and like block the left. The problem is, it's just not working. Like you saw Spinks immediately just close the range with the left hand, or either come over the right hand instead. So this is the fourth round, and for the last 2 rounds we've seen Holmes do the exact same mistakes, and obviously this round Spinks has punished him more. But yeah, he's seen the leaky defense and keeps going for it. But I think this has been Spinks' best round of the fight so far, because he's really taken the play from Holmes. Yeah,
he's putting in them uppercuts to the body, isn't it? It's working for him, and he's going for it. I mean, the question is how long can he keep up that output? You know, he's a smaller guy, but it still takes it out of you. Even, you know, he's still a heavy guy in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
He looks super fit though. You know, probably got a good engine on him.
Yeah. You kind of mentioned it as well. How do you carry an extra 25 pounds the first time as well, over a 15 rounder as well?
Yeah, I'd forgot about that as well. Actually, these are longer rounds, longer fights. Sorry, more rounds. So, can imagine some of the heavyweights these days not being able to get anywhere near 15 rounds. Alright, so I've just paused it there. That's the end of round 4. I'm going to put in our scores and then we'll have a look at the side-by-side comparison, I think.
Yeah.
So let me just get that up. I've got so many tabs open in my window. I need to just find the correct one. There we go. So yeah, I think, like I said, a clear round for Spinks on that one. I think I've gone, slightly more in terms of percentage. It was definitely his most dominant round. And again, I guess he's landing the better shots, isn't he, really? So let's have a look at our combined view. Or a side-by-side view, rather. And hopefully that will be coming up on the stream. So this is the side-by-side scorecard feature. So if you are a registered member and you have a feed of your group feed, sorry, I'm getting myself confused. In your group section you will see a feed of scorecards coming through from your friends, and if you've scored the same fight that they've scored, there'll be a little icon that allows you to do side-by-side scorecard comparisons, and this is how it looks. So you've got your card on the left hand side, the other person's on the right hand side, and obviously side-by-side, so you can just quickly see in one view exactly how you scored it in comparison. And I think it's it's quite a neat feature.
Yeah.
It's there, it's in your view, you can see it straight away. There's no having to flick between 2 images or anything like that, going between 2 different links. And I think this feature is something that we've not really shouted about enough. I think we need to do more of all of these features that are created on the system. So I'm not sure if you've got the stream up.
I can see it.
Can you see? Yeah, cool. So we can see what we've been talking through our scores anyway, but you've got it 38 all.
Yep.
So that's 2 rounds each. I scored differently in the first round, so I've got it 39-37. We can see that we've got different reasonings for the first and the last round that we scored. That's quite interesting. Your percentage in round 4. Obviously, we discussed that it was a wider round in terms of how close it was.
Yeah.
And an interesting thing is how people interpret, the percentage. I think when I'm scoring, I'm quite reserved with the percentages, and I only put things up at the 70% mark if like someone's getting if they feel the shot and they might sag a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why on mine I've gone like 65. I think that's kind of the maximum I'll take it if no one's showing signs of discomfort or anything like that. Obviously, if there's a knockdown, I'm going to put it up probably more towards 80. But then you also get rounds where there is a knockdown. He's obviously the clear winner, but for the the other 2 minutes of the fight, maybe the other guy was winning. So the percentage slider is quite, I guess it's versatile, or it can be really interpreted in very different ways between different people, and I kind of like it like that. I don't want to set boundaries like saying, if there's been a knockdown then it has to be over 80%, because like I said in that scenario where one fighter is bossing the round and then maybe the other fighter just gives a flash knockdown, is it really a 80-20 round, or is it more like kind of 50-50, but the knockdown obviously just sways everything?
Definitely. I think as well, it kind of allows us to illustrate how we're seeing the fight, and I think we've obviously seen it quite similar. If you look, I've got it 53-46 in favour of Spinks in terms of the kind of percentages. You've got it 55-45, so only 2% difference. So we can clearly see that Spinks in the rounds he's winning is more dominant, which is quite interesting. I think the only real round we kind of have disagreed on is the first, and we admitted at the end of that it was a close one. So I think it's either a draw or Spinks ahead from the looks of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's more of all right, so shall we resume? We'll continue. I think if we compare the cards every 4, I think that's all right. Although I forgot that it was a 15-round fight, but we'll see what we're like at the end as well. I'm not sure if you picked up on the broadcast for this, what TV broadcaster it is.
No, I've not picked it up.
No worries, I couldn't remember either. But quite interesting to see, the differences between production, back in the 80s to what it's like these days.
Yeah. The actual, if you look at the logo, it looks like HBO, and I think I heard what's his name? Yeah, Larry Merchant in commentary, so it might be early HBO.
Yeah, could be. So we go round 5. So it looks like Spinks kind of slowing down a little bit in contrast to his last fight. Coming off the stool anyways, it's kind of going the same kind of way, isn't it? Holmes is pouring that jab out, Spinks is trying to overcome that, and then they're kind of tying up, maybe a bit scrappy, but this is a bit better action now.
Yeah, it's interesting as well that Spinks is happy to kind of stand in that kind of, I suppose that's the kind of the outside range, and he's able to kind of get full extension on the jab, snap Holmes' head back, kind of exchange jabs, which up to that point was kind of boxing IQ suicide, because no one exchanged jabs with Larry Holmes, because he had the best, probably pound for pound at that point, the best jab in the world.
Yeah.
But you can see him jab his way in, and then Spinks, he's just working so well on the inside, and Holmes just has no answer for that inside fighting. You saw him kind of feint there, just kind of land the left hook to the body, kind of close up, and then Spinks is able to kind of make it like shorten the right hand as well to kind of land.
Yeah.
And you see it when they come up close, he changes his range and then lands a left hook there. Just Holmes has no answers for it at all.
Yeah, so we'll just pass the halfway mark.
I think Spinks so far has just thrown and landed more. He switched his attack well. He switches it to the head. He switches it to the body. He switched ranges. Larry Holmes has done okay on the counter there, but you feel that Spinks defensively has been better. He's used his head movement. He's been able to block some of the jabs, and he's just thrown and landed more as well. So it's up to Larry Holmes to try and fight in this last minute and steal it back realistically.
Yeah. What is your thoughts on that? You hear it oftentimes, in the commentary as fights are going through. They'll say, "Oh, so and so's had a good 2 minutes, but for that last 45 seconds, the other guy has done better." As that swayed the judges, do you think a lot of stock gets put into the last 30 seconds to a minute as that's what people are remembering rather than the round as a whole?
I think it happens a lot more than we wanted to, especially if it's a big shot as well. Like if Holmes lands a big right hand here and the sweat, flies off Spinks' head, I'd guarantee you that all three judges give it to Holmes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the end of that round. You heard Larry Merchant there say he thought Spinks landed the best punch there, but he thought Holmes won it, which just watching it here, I thought I kind of disagreed with. I thought Spinks landed just threw and landed more, and landed a lot of good shots as well, different ranges as I kind of mentioned earlier. So for me, a closer round than the last one. Holmes landed more, but I thought Spinks won that round.
I'm in agreement. I think it was very similar to the previous round, but kind of just less dominant. Holmes was a little bit more composed. He still had a bit of on the jab, but ultimately it didn't keep Spinks off him, did it? He still swarmed him, he still landed, and I think this is a classic case where a lot of the reasons that you're choosing in the round is simply just landing the cleaner, more effective shots as the reason, and that is the most general reason on this list, and it's definitely the one that I use the most often. And again, next week we'll kind of explain what these reasons kind of definitively mean in my mind and how people might interpret them. But yeah, for me, it was probably still a fairly close round. I've gone for 40-60 percentage wise, but around for Spinks again.
Yeah, I had the same percentage and the same score.
So I've now got Spinks 4-1 up, 49-46.
Yeah, as you kind of mentioned earlier, the only round we disagree on is the first one, which was by far the closest round, just because it was so tentative. So it's either 3-2 Spinks or 4-1 Spinks.
Yeah. And you get that oftentimes, don't you? The first round's always cagey, it could go either way.
And here, you see Spinks circling around and then throwing and landing multiple jabs. Boxing on the outside of Larry Holmes, which I don't think many people at the time probably expected to see.
Mm-hmm. So Holmes then kind of doing a bit of jogging on the spot. I don't know whether he's trying to look like he's being more active or or what.
Yeah, I mean, in this first kind of almost 2 minutes of this round, you've seen Spinks not even get on the inside as much or the mid range, but he's just thrown and landed more jabs against Larry Holmes and then kind of circled around him. And you saw there, it's the range control as well. You saw Larry Holmes flick out the jab, and only the kind of the tip of the glove touched his face. It wasn't a clean shot. And then, I mean, just to break down that exchange there, he just landed the jab and then avoided the counter, and then he's coming back with his own shot.
Yeah, landed a couple there, three, 4 shots, uppercuts. So that was textbook.
And this is what we talk about with like proper pedigree with boxers as well. That you can see Spinks. It's his control of the range. He's able to. That you saw it right there. Larry Holmes threw out a jab, and he just moved his head in time just to take the sting away from it. That's like years worth of amateur and professional experience to let you know that you can take the damage out of that shot, and then control the range. Yeah, exactly. And Spinks has landed about 2 or 3 decent combinations in the last minute as well, which really stamped his authority on the round.
Yeah, definitely is. There's been 2 or 3 flurries there which are all eye-catching, and another one again there right at the end is, you saw Holmes' face get partially turned. So that, again, that's a clear round for me. Spinks probably as strong as his round 4. And again, it's just choice of reasons. I guess a couple could apply in that round. He was effective on counter punching, but that probably wasn't the main reason. He's just landed the more cleaner shots. I mean, you could also say he controlled the round, but I generally use like controlling the round more for when a boxer's kind of using his jab, keeping the guy at range, and just generally controlling the position of his opponent.
Yeah, like you said, very similar to round 4. In fact, I scored the same. I did 70-30 again, and I used control in the action. Like you kind of said, Spinks obviously a lot of factors apply there. He did land the best shots there in by far, but I felt in the first 2 minutes he kind of outboxed him behind the jab, and then in the last minute he just lands the combinations at will. I don't think Holmes really got off many effective shots at all. I thought Spinks was basically just in complete control.
Yeah. I agree. I've just paused it there so you could finish your explanation so we don't get too distracted.
Cheers.
And having kind of looked down the list again, there was another one that you could apply to that is on the front foot, because a lot of the time he was coming forward. Holmes was jabbing away, but Spinks was, he was just coming at him, wasn't he? After a counter as such. So, several reasons could really apply there. I'm going to stick with, landed the more clear and effective shots.
Yeah.
So we'll continue. And percentage-wise, again, like you did, saying percentages around 4, it was that similar kind of dominance.
Yeah. Just to kind of reiterate earlier, I was doing some research in kind of the build-up, and you could see a few sources mentioning that Spinks was a 4-1 underdog going into this. So pretty significant, really. And just looking so far, I think he's comfortably ahead. I think everyone's scorecard would definitely have him in there, a few points up.
Yeah.
And then able to back off Larry Holmes, get his respect, out jab him. I don't think many people would have expected this from a guy who was a great light heavyweight, but moving up 25 pounds to fight the best heavyweight in the world.
Yeah, it would have been a big shock, I guess, at this stage of the fight. Impressive so far.
Yeah.
So this one's a little bit of a slower round, a bit more cagey. Not a lot happening, but we're nearly halfway through. And these are the ones that are more difficult to score.
Yeah. See Spinks there. They kind of exchanged jabs. I thought Spinks has probably landed a few more of the jabs flush in this round.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But these are the... Yeah. Oh, there's a decent combination back. But these are the rounds that Holmes should be winning. And you could see him on the front foot as well, just doing the elbow feint, the foot feint, just trying to get off the jab. But he just seems hesitant to throw it. I think we kind of discussed this earlier, but you just wonder if it's those combinations that have got his respect.
Yeah. It does look like he's just struggling for ideas, doesn't it? He's probably not expected Spinks to be either as effective with his shots. Obviously moving up quite a way, he might have underestimated his power.
Definitely. And I think it's fair to say, as much as he's moving up, Holmes has shown a good chin as well. Because obviously we saw yesterday what Usyk could kind of do when a guy who's heavyweight sized can put all his body weight through a shot. He had Joshua in trouble at the end of that third round, buckled his knees.
Yeah.
Holmes has shown a good chin. Obviously, a lot of people always talk about the early Shaver's knockdown. The sound of that punch, and then Holmes going down and managing to make it back up. But Holmes was hurting down a few times in his career. I think a lot of people forget that.
Yeah.
It's his powers of recovery, like Tyson Fury. You drop him, but he always manages to get up and win the fight.
Yeah.
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 I mean, Larry Archer just kind of covered it perfectly there. He just said, beat him to the punch with his jab and took his right hand. Basically, everything in the arsenal. He's just winning everything. But yeah, that was another good round for Spinks. Not controlling the action for me, but probably I think maybe a 60-40 landed cleaner shots for me, probably.
Yeah, you can definitely see it that way. I've actually gone reason-wise, just more active. I think Holmes, he was a little bit less so. His output wasn't as much, and Spinks, while he did land the more effective shots, I think he wasn't as busy as General. But in terms of the context of that round, I think he was just being a bit more active. Like you said earlier on, they both exchanged jabs, but he landed 3 or 4 more, and that's because he threw a little bit more. So I've gone 60-40 as well for Spinks, more active.
And the thing about Spinks as well that you kind of talk about being more active is that he always exposes his opportunities, and the fact that you saw. Sorry, I was kind of interrupting myself just thinking, because that was an excellent exchange there.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
It's just the way Spinks can flurry it, and then there's the right hand. And you see, this is what I was going to say. You see him double the right hand over the top, and in that last round I saw him do it 3 times. He's just not afraid to throw 3 right hands. You don't really see that too often anymore.
No.
Especially against a lighter. Imagine if Usyk had just, thrown 3 left hands against Joshua, you'd been like, oh, that's never going to happen. But I mean, Spinks is just so awkward and so accurate that you can get away with it.
Yeah, I think speed helps as well. I mean, it's an awkward shot to throw singularly, never mind doubling it or trebling it in a row. So I guess it's something that you never really think is coming, so it's effective if you can do it and can throw it, and you are quick enough to do it. This has been a good round for Spinks again so far, but Holmes is kind of pressing him back a bit with the jab here, trying to get him back to the rope. He's looking a little bit more in command, but I think Spinks is also kind of coming off the gas a little bit. I think for the first minute and a half it's still a Spinks round, but it's just sitting back a little bit here. But then again, he comes back and throws some uppercuts that they're landing. Yeah,
just flurrying a bit. Spinks, some of it's obviously his awkward style, but you can see him there just kind of, I don't know how you call it, he kind of shimmies away. He doesn't really move away like a Redondo, Erislandy Lara. When someone tries to move across the ring and they have some Cuban elegant footwork or something to that effect. But he seems to move, and he crosses his legs over as well. It's really strange, because if you cross your legs like that and someone hits you, you'd expect that you'd have no balance, you'd go down. But Spinks just gets away with it. He doesn't really care. He's just still outboxing him. But you kind of mentioned this. Holmes has really stepped up the pace in the second half of the round. He's committed to the jab more. He's worked it through, and he's throwing the right hand now.
And this is a tricky one, because I think he's kind of commanding what's happening in this round, but the shots of Spinks are a little bit more exciting when he does come back and does the few flurries. So this is one that you could go either way, really, depending on what you like. And
you see Spinks as well just try and throw some combinations. He landed some good right hands. Holmes went to the body there as well with some really nice hooks. Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. That round was
It's tough.
very competitive, very close. To be honest, for me, just from watching it here, I think I had the edge towards Spinks, based on the power shots he did land throughout the round, especially kind of the shots he got off in the first half. But if someone liked the jabs of Larry Holmes more in the kind of second half of the round, you really couldn't argue otherwise, I feel.
Yeah.
I'd probably leave it to 50-50 percentage wise, and bar Michael Spinks cleaner shots, but dead close round.
It was very close. I'm not shy of going with a 10-10 as well. I think 10-10 should be utilised more than they actually are. But I think you're right. I think, like I said, the Spinks is what he landed was just more eye catching. It looked better. It was probably more damaging overall. So razor close, could go either way. But yeah, I always if it's a 10-9 round, I don't give 50-50. I always put it at least 5%. 5% being the very slimmest margin. So I know that was the end of the 8th and we was going to review scorecards, but given that it's a 15 round fight, we'll go to 10.
Yeah,
10
I think that's good.
And then we'll see the comparison. And then obviously we've got the final cards after round 15.
Slower kind of start here. A lot of kind of left hand feints. Holmes is kind of hunting him down. Spinks is kind of moving about. Not really a proper clean shot. Authoritative shot landed yet. A lot of kind of feints, as we said. Really quiet first minute.
Yeah. Yeah, there isn't much. But I mean, if you have to score it as a minute, it's got to be for Holmes, hasn't it? He's going forward. I mean, he's
on the front foot. I think he landed the only jab as well, that kind of like landed clean. So yeah, absolutely. Holmes took the first minute, just edged it.
And he's getting that jab working a little bit more effective now. So he's commanding this round.
Yeah.
He's controlling it. I think Spinks is probably taking a bit of time off here. He probably knows he's up on the scorecards, might be taking a bit of a rest. But it's allowing Holmes to just kind of look more dominant than he has been previous. Good exchange there.
Yeah, Spinks looking to maybe go down to the body a bit more. Holmes is committed to the jab to the head. He obviously will land it, but Spinks' head movement is really taking the jab away for a large part. I'm surprised Holmes hasn't kind of jabbed more to the body, because they often say if you jab to the chest, jab to the body, you'll slow your opponent down, and the body doesn't move like the head. There's always a centre line with that body, and obviously you see the body jab is an important weapon for fighters like Floyd Mayweather Jr., Andre Ward. They often broke fighters down with the jab to the body. So Holmes always committed to the jab to the head, which I think he roughly probably say he only lands 1 out of every 5 he throws, 1 out of every 4 or 5. So he is doing enough by throwing and landing them, but missing those shots does take out a lot of energy, especially the 15 rounder.
Yeah, definitely. So he's trying to close around strong, Spinks. I think it's one of them where last 30 seconds throw a few flurries. If they land, I might nick it in the judge's eyes. But I think that was Holmes' best round. Probably the whole fight, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think he just got behind the jab more, and he was even ready for Spinks a bit more in terms of the counter. You saw before he landed those 3 right hands, you saw Spinks kind of try and land an overhand right, and Holmes immediately came back with the counter uppercut. So you just try to basically walk him into that shot. But yeah, for me, I think I'd probably go more active on that one, because Spinks probably landed a fairly good amount of clean shots, of eye-catching shots, but it's Holmes really behind the jab that kind of commanded it for me.
Yeah, that's the way I've gone. Seems like his strongest round, since round 1. Round 2, which was the last one I gave to Holmes. controlled the action in my eyes. So, yeah, away we go for round 10.
Obviously, we'll cover the scores at the end of this round, but just having a little glance there, Spinks, I think you could just tell from our commentary as well, is still in a significant lead.
Yeah,
So Holmes really knows he has to step it up now. He can't really afford to waste too many more of these rounds.
absolutely. So maybe a bit more urgency. It's on the front foot. Starting off well, but you can see Spinks is getting back into that countering, kind of almost out jabbing Holmes again, but nothing really significant landing in that little exchange. Well, it's kind of eye-catching.
Yeah. I think you mentioned this earlier as well, but this is when you can see Spinks really start to fatigue. I know he's still moving about, but there's not as much snap on those shots anymore, and you can see Holmes is starting to basically see them coming. He's starting to lean back enough to take the kind of the pop out the shot. He's complaining here about I think it's a headbutt on the inside.
Yeah, he wasn't happy with that. It looks like an accidental coming together, but he's really not happy there, is he?
No.
Yeah, and, they just said it in the commentary there. He's working himself up a bit there, and
there's a nice kind of left to the body. Also, it's interesting that Spinks actually, in the kind of last few rounds, has invested more in the body than he did at the start. In the first 5 rounds, he was primarily headhunting, but now you see him, basically the majority of shots are targeting the body. Trying to maybe invest for kind of late rally, hoping Holmes tires at 13, 14, 15, maybe he could steal those.
Yeah, and that was a good little flurry there. I mean, I think in terms of this round, up until this point, it's been fairly quiet.
Yeah.
Just that little bit of flurry there by Spinks. Probably the main thing that's happened in this round, I'd say.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think it's his cleaner shot so far, because he landed that combination. He did land one earlier as well. That kind of just stuck through the guard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if that right hand landed cleanly. I think Spinks might have just blocked it. And you see there, he just landed another double right hand. Yeah. Holmes has got no defense for it at all. But yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head. And with that extra combination, you got to feel Spinks has almost stolen the round.
Yeah.
And it's only based off 3 combinations too.
Yeah, I mean, you get that quite often in rounds, and it's on the reasons list as well. Sometimes there is cagey rounds where they're just kind of dancing around each other, the pouring out. I've accidentally paused that there. Sorry.
Yeah.
And one of them will just do a little flurry, 3 or 4 punch combination, and it's the only kind of thing that really happened apart from the jabbing and being caging around, and that's that's good enough to win the round in that instance. So there is a significant punch / combo, because sometimes it is just literally one punch that is the only significant thing that happens in a round. But yeah, I mean, I think that is a good case for that reason to be used. So that's what I'm going for on that one. I think Spinks, just purely from that combination they put together in the last 30 seconds. There was 1 or 2.
Yeah, it was one of Spinks' better combinations of the fight as well, because he really just switched it up and landed a lot of good shots. Yeah. Do you want to pause at 11 and then go through our scorecards, or do you want to do it after this round?
Sorry, I didn't mean to pause it again just before that started. We will have a quick recap of the side by sides. So let's have a refresh. So we're going from round 4. So yeah, I can move it down for us to view.
Yeah.
I mean, if you kind of look at the blue and red percentage lines, it's very similar.
Yeah, we said this about the first 4 as well, and even just from our kind of general commentary, our thoughts on the fight, we've not really disagreed often.
Mm-hmm.
It's not been the hardest fight in the world to score, especially because I think Spinks has been able to outbox him for so many of these rounds.
Yeah, Yeah, like I say, this it has been pretty straightforward, and I think for the most part, when people are using this system, they are most people will be seeing the same kind of fight, and so you'll generally get some differentiation in terms of reasons, like we've got here. There's actually not that many rounds where we both choose the same reason, and I think that's good. I think it shows that that it's not just one reason why a boxer can win a round, and people can see it differently if there's a specific reason why they're awarding the round to that boxer. Obviously, when we've got a bunch of people scoring and you get that data, it's quite interesting to see which reasons are actually picked the most. And that side of things. But yeah, I think, did we have any differentiation, or did we score it the same? 10, 9, 10, 9, 10.
Yeah, we've scored the last few rounds all the same.
Yeah, all the same.
Yeah, the first round we actually only disagreed on was the first one, which was the tentative kind of start to it, and that's everything else has been,
Yeah, fairly consistent. Obviously, we've got slight different totals, but we are seeing the same fight. I mean, the percentages across the bottom really reflects that. We're like 0.5% out.
Yeah, that's the most interesting thing for me, that even the flows of the round are being kind of almost equally matched by both of us. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. All right, we'll continue. We'll continue. What are your thoughts on 15 rounders? Do you think that could be something that should come back? Because obviously it probably rules out draws that we often get.
Yeah.
Sorry,
just
stream again.
Sorry. Yeah, Spinks lands some really good shots here. I think the problem with 15 rounders is that nowadays they're just too unsafe. Because obviously there's problems enough in the 12 rounders of being weight trained. I mean, a lot of the fighters cut ridiculous amounts of weight, but with 15 rounders, and this has actually been kind of merited by the likes of like George Foreman as well. He basically says 15 rounders are just too tough. Obviously we saw this with a kind of tragedy back in the day with Ray Mancini, which was the main reason why they obviously got kind of scrapped. But a 15 rounder with a weight drain obviously resulted in the man losing his life, and obviously it's such a dangerous sport already that it's not really worth the risk. That being said, for nostalgic value, the 15 rounders do kind of I think Sugar Ray Leonard once kind of wrote this in a blog post. They do kind of separate the men from the boys. 13, 14 and 15 used to be the difference in the fight, really. There was an old fight, I'm not sure if you've seen it, it was back when Barry McGuigan was champion of the world, and he fought Steve Cruz. It was basically outdoor arena in LA in the summer, scorching hot heat. He'd been training, I think, back in Ireland, so he had not kind of acclimatized. So basically, he won the fight in rounds. He probably won about 9-6 in rounds, but because he was so tired, he got knocked down a few times at the end of the fight, and that's what basically the difference. Yeah. Whereas if that had been a 12-rounder nowadays, he'd have been too fresh. He'd have won that clean. So it is interesting to think. And you think about the most famous one, Sugar Ray Leonard versus Thomas Hearns 1. If that had been over 12 rounds, Tommy Hearns would have beaten Ray Leonard on points. But he was so tired in 13 and 14 that Ray knocked him out.
Yeah, no, valid points. Obviously, the only upside to it would be that you get a little bit more value for your pay-per-view money, but
yeah, definitely.
But that's about it. 12 rounds is plenty. So, interesting round. How did you score it?
To be honest, I think that's probably the closest round I think I've watched since the first one as well, because there was a lot of ebb and flow for me. It's another kind of battle of jabs as well. just watching it there, I would have probably edged it to Spinks.
Okay.
Again, but I think you could easily make the case that Holmes won it as well.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
I've gone the other way. I've gone for Holmes in that one. I think he, you know, his jab was a bit more there, and sometimes you think, instead of like thinking about the round as just a whole in itself, you kind of compare it to what has happened previously, and I'm not sure if that's the right way to go about things when judging a boxing match. It should be a standalone round, and whatever came before that is it's in the past. But yeah, for me, I can't help but look at it in that kind of context, and I think that the jab of Holmes won it out in comparison to Spinks' previously jabby performances.
Yeah. Well, Spinks thrown quite a few shots here, but not really having the success. He's only kind of glancing with it. Holmes was able to kind of lean back and kind of avoid the most of the damage from the shots, really. And now he seems to kind of do that kind of jog around and then try and almost like get a breather or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Holmes getting the jab off now. Kind of continuing his success from the last round. Obviously, we said it was really close. You had it for Holmes. So if you've given Holmes the close rounds, I think I don't think he's totally out of the water yet. So I think him and his team must be thinking, we don't have to drop any more of these rounds, but there's still a chance we could win it on points or maybe get a knockout.
Yeah. So we're approaching halfway in this round 12. I'm seeing Spinks kind of dancing around a lot, kind of staying off. Holmes is plodding forward and throwing out the jab. Good little comeback there by Spinks. Is it enough to sway it? I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because the punch counts are just so low because Spinks moves around, which I think you could say is an ode to his kind of ring generalship. That he moves around, gets his breather, he lands a quick combination, gets out. But I would comment on this one. If you have a close round, there's a reason on the platform, good defensive work.
Yeah.
But this is the round where I'd actually credit Holmes more for the good defensive work, because look at that, he's actually just avoided all the shots in that combination there.
Yeah.
It just manipulates the distance and then can lean back and gets away with it. So. Yeah.
And it's just same again. I mean, it was a little bit of a wild swing, but it was just a tiny little flick back of his head just to get out of the way of the hook, and it made Spinks kind of look a bit stupid.
Yeah, it just made him miss by kind of miles. And like you said, it's a game of inches, and Holmes has basically found the range now. Earlier on, we were talking about Spinks finding the range, and he showed it there, but it looks like Holmes has found it as well for his own jab. There's a bit of animation there, a bit of a show.
I think Holmes is kind of known. He's been in control a bit of this one, and Spinks are just kind of backing off, walking away, their hands down. Just seemed a little bit disinterested. Maybe he's thinking, I'm way up on the cards, mate. Stop, put your hands down.
Yeah, I think as well that Spinks landed a few good shots in that round, and for me, I thought Holmes won it. Mm-hmm. I thought he just threw and landed more jabs, so my reason to be more active. But you could see Spinks just picking his spots, landing a few of the shots, and the few of the shots are decent though. So I wouldn't be surprised if someone watching kind of casually would give that round to Spinks, and that's exactly what they need Holmes not to do. Holmes needs to be throwing more, to make sure that he's not stealing it from. Spinks is not stealing the round down in front of the judges, but he seems to be quite slow paced. And he's been slow paced for the entire fight as well.
Yeah. Yeah, just I think I've given that one to Holmes as well. I think he controlled the action with the jab. So it's a good opening 10 seconds there from Holmes. He just come out firing a bit.
And he landed a nice right hand through the guard as well.
Yeah, Spinks is kind of backed up a bit with that. he's probably felt that and gone, yeah, I need to just be a little bit wary here.
Yeah, really got us kind of attention with that one. Just out of curiosity as well, I just had a wee glance at the card, and if this was a 12 rounder, I'd have had it 116, 112 to Michael Spinks. So
Exactly the same, yeah.
yeah, so there's a bit of consensus there, which is quite interesting. But it just goes to show how, I mean, a kind of correlation, a kind of parallel with Usyk, Joshua we had as well, where a smaller guy moved up and took on the heavyweight champion of the world. There are similarities though. A guy moving well, landing the cleaner shots. Sometimes, tires a bit in the middle rounds and loses a few of them, but ultimately is outboxing him. It's quite interesting. 36 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, there are definitely parallels. It was a good choice. It just so happened to be.
Yeah.
This, at the anniversary this week, 36 years. So that was the reason it was picked. And obviously it's off the back of last night's fight, and like you say, the parallels are just right there, aren't they?
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well that obviously we watched this not at the time. In fact, like you said, we are 36 years in the future, but Holmes looks and boxes like a 35-year-old this fight.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at some of his earlier performances, I mean, he's so far removed from the Ken Norton fight where he won the title, where he was quicker, he threw more punches. I mean, the Ken Norton fight was basically a war of the kind of the last kind of the kind of early rise of Larry Holmes and kind of Ken Norton on his way out. Like, just this pace is so much slower, and I think Michael Spinks has shown he's the better boxer. He's just tactically been able to win these exchanges. You see what he does there, switching the attack to head and body. But Holmes is, I think a lot of people would have argued he looked just disappointing, a bit kind of lethargic as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of them, isn't it? You get older, you slow down. You found new ways to win, basically, and up until this point, he'd done that, hasn't he?
I think this has been a very good return round for Spinks as well, in terms of getting the shots off head and body, hard shots.
Yeah, it was a good start from Holmes. He just couldn't keep it up, could he?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's one that it started off well, but it's probably thrown that away.
I'd agree with that. I think it was kind of like in the last kind of 2 minutes as well, where Spinks just picks his spots, doesn't he? He moves around the ring. He's good with his defense, and then he just lands the cleaner, more effective shots. So I kind of edged it. I think I'm just going to go 55-45 though.
Yeah, I'm of the same thing. I've gone for more active. I don't know if it's the right call, but it just seemed that because Holmes just slowed down so much, and Spinks obviously kind of turned it around. That's the kind of vibe I've got going for.
Yeah. Interesting on the HBO punch stats now. Obviously, we know the punch stats in CompuBox are never accurate, but it just happens to show that from their tally that Spinks is landing about 45% of his punches.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, caveat, as I said, not always accurate, but it just goes to show you how efficient he is, though. The way he can kind of land those treble right hands in a row.
Yeah.
Holmes will have a good start here, though.
Yeah, he's winding them shots up.
Yeah. It's so kind of.
Oh, that was a great counter.
Yeah. Oh, there's a big left hand. It's amazing how Spinks can, in 1 second, be so kind of like, lackadaisical, just walks away with his hands down after just avoiding a massive right hand, and then comes back to land big counter shots.
I mean, that alone, that little move there where, he avoided the big hook, turned around and then gave him one back.
Yeah.
That alone probably was the equivalent of the good work that Holmes had done for that previous 50 seconds or so.
Yeah.
I'd still sway this to Holmes, but Spinks is kind of bullying him a bit.
Yeah. And then, like you say, it's a game of I mean, we don't score fights in terms of the Olympics, but some of these fights were, you're watching two excellent boxers. It's almost like the old Olympic scoring system where it was just, you get 1 point for a punch, but you see Holmes land one jab, it's like 1 point for him. Spinks lands a jab back, it's 1 point for him.
Yeah.
Then Spinks lands, the 1-2, and then suddenly he's like it's 4 points to 1. There's kind of similarity in this fight, I feel, because of the kind of the level of boxing you're watching. But Holmes coming back into it, landing the jab again, and Spinks just kind of slowed down a bit. This is the day as well. You see that head movement there, and Spinks turns his head at the last moment. So we discussed this before, that only the kind of tip of the glove is landing. So it's not really a scoring shot. But if you watch that on the TV casually, or you're seeing that ringside, you'll be seeing a glove land and his head move. So that looks like 4 scoring jabs there. So it's quite deceiving in the eyes of the judges.
Yeah.
And the judges won't have this HBO broadcast as well. We can see it clearly. We can see the kind of how sophisticated his defense is, but they'll be seeing that and they're going, well, Holmes has just has snapped his head back so many times with those jabs. But realistically, it's Spinks' defense that's kind of working well.
Yeah.
Spinks is just, like they said, he's just been completely quiet in this last minute, and Holmes has really got the jab off. Holmes actually, I've just stolen this round actually.
That is a really close one, really tough, because it was Holmes at the start, Spinks turned it around, and then, like you say, I think he just came off the gas there right at the end, didn't he? And maybe that was enough to sway it over to Holmes.
Yeah, I think I might honestly go Holmes. I think it's just an edge for me, like a 55-45, but maybe I'm more active, just behind the jab.
I agree. That's what my thinking was there, just more active, because they were so similar in what they did, but he just did it a bit more.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think that's absolutely plausible. Do
you want to cover our scorecards just before the last round?
Yeah, we can do that.
Or do you want to wait?
We can see where we're up to. So if we go from about there, rounds 11 through 14. So yeah, similar again. So round 11 was the very close one, because you went 50-50, but gave the round to Spinks and I gave it to Holmes. So yeah, that could have gone either way. I gave 55-45 because, like I explained before, if someone wins the round, I'll always put the percentage in their favour.
Yeah.
So I think that's 2 rounds then that we scored differently, wasn't it?
Yeah, just round 1 and round 11. Interesting thing is though that the 2 close rounds we've inverted. So whilst I gave it to Spinks originally, to Holmes, you gave the other one to Spinks. So ultimately our scorecards are the exact same.
Yeah, they've come in line now, haven't they?
Yeah.
Obviously that percentage has jumped a little bit. We're slightly away on that, but you'd expect that, really, especially over the more rounds as well.
Yeah.
The gaps in them percentages can differ, but they're still pretty close and consistent.
Yeah, 53 and 52. It just gives you an indication that Spinks is still winning his rounds more convincingly. And yeah, that's on our scorecard. That's 9 rounds to 5. So I think without doubt, I think Spinks is ahead. You could just watch the fight and there's no Spinks is ahead. So Holmes really had to really go for it in this last round.
In this last round, yeah, absolutely. In agreement there. Okay, let's continue. Watch this last round.
In fact, I think Spinks would have to. Holmes would have to basically get a stoppage in this last round. I don't, the 3 knockdowns is realistically just not enough.
Yeah. And is the 3 knockdown rule a thing back then, or is it only a UK thing? I really don't know what the rule was.
I'm not sure either, because this was. Give me a second. I've got it here. So this was the. IBF fight.
IBF,
I'm not sure IBF did have the three knockdown rule. I think the three knockdown rule was a WBC thing, but I might be wrong.
Yeah, I couldn't remember whether it was a governing body or whether it was a British one or American one or whatnot.
On the actual stream, I don't see the fight playing. It just seems to be a paused video.
Okay.
I thought it might have been a delay thing, but it's just a paused video.
Okay, let's try and change. It's because I gave the wrong window. I'll just rewind back to the start of the...
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, there we go.
Always great thing about corner work is it'd be great to be like a fly on the wall when you hear this corner work. Michael Spinks must think he's ahead, but what does corner say? Do they say be smart, or do they say run away your head, or what do they say to Holmes? Who's the heavyweight champion? Do they say you got to go out and you got to knock him out, or do they think do they have it closer than we do? Do they think he just has to win this round and then maybe get a draw or something? It's quite interesting it'd be interesting to know the psychology a bit more. Behind what they're told in these championship rounds. This has been really good action here, just exchange of right hands.
Yeah, it's going off what you were just saying there. Maybe both corners have said you need to go out there and win this round.
Yeah.
Don't leave it to chance. Spinks could probably take it off a little bit more, but again, you don't know how the judges are scoring it. There are a few close rounds which theoretically the judges could give it to the champ. So he's got to go for it, and he can't just wait it out and hope. And you can tell that Holmes is definitely up to gears. He's swinging with purpose.
Yeah.
He's trying to get him out of there and find that shot.
Spinks has punched himself out a bit now, landed a few combinations. Just try to get his breather. You see his hands down at his waist as well, just for a second, then he takes this kind of guarded pose, and then he gets a lead left hook in. Yeah, not really having much success with the clean shots here. I'm surprised Holmes hasn't been more active, because you see him, breathe out, the foot feint, the jab. Oh, there's a big right hand.
Yeah.
That was probably Holmes' best shot of the fight.
Yeah, time that to perfection.
Yeah, I'm surprised Michael Spinks actually wasn't really hurt by that.
Yeah,
because that's a big heavyweight right hand.
Yeah, I mean it clearly phased him a bit, but he's not. His legs out wobbly. He's still got his feet under him. But that was in terms of our scoring system, that could be the one punch that's winning the round. But it's a good exchange now at the end. They're just trying to steal the last 30 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, so far I think it would be for me because, he's landed some good jabs. Spinks has landed some decent power shots, but that right hand was the shot of the round.
Definitely, yeah.
And here's Holmes as well. Just, there was 10 seconds left, and then you don't see Holmes just kind of maybe go for it. So must be have a bit of confidence. But yeah, I think for me, a 55-45 Holmes. I think I'd probably go significant punch, to be honest.
Yeah, that's exactly how I've done it as well. So.
But yeah.
Well, it was an interesting fight. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, a very historical fight as well, obviously.
Yeah. Still
controversial because of Holmes' post-fight comments, because he was so close to the Marciano record, and then after losing he said something quite disparaging to the effect of Marciano couldn't hold my jock strap.
Yeah.
Which got him into a bit of bother, but it's a really good performance by Spinks. I think we had it 9-6 in the rounds, 144, 141.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But yeah, you see the punch stats 44-46, really efficient. But yeah, Spinks just throwing and landing more better shots. I think that was really the story of the fight.
Yeah. I've just switched out to our side-by-side scores just while we wait for the official score. scores to come out.
Just out of curiosity, I can see online as well that the Associated Press ringside scorecard was the same as us, 144, 141, and the UPI had it wider. Oh, sorry, I misread that. Sorry, Associated Press had it 144, 141 for Larry Holmes, so they had it 9-6 Holmes. That's interesting.
Now I just realised that the side by sides seems to have stopped at round 14. It doesn't show up for the 15th round, so that is something that I'm going to look into.
Well, round 15, we had the same reason anyway. The significant punch, we both had it 10-9 for Holmes. So yeah.
Yeah. So you see, it actually shows our totals. It's just cut off the last round.
Yeah.
That's okay. Maybe we can look at it a different way. Yeah, so just to clarify, 10-9, this is your scorecard by the way, 10-9,
Yeah.
round 15, significant punch combo, and the same for my card as well.